Hey kids, tell me, how was your summer vacation this year? Go on, you can tell me. It's okay. I'm just a person on a screen. I don't want to mind. You know? Oh. Oh. Really? Hmm. That's fascinating. Mine had a couple of ups and downs too. It's quite a lot to get into. But no matter what the cost, no matter how good or bad it maintained, we can all agree on one thing that made it stand out the best. This year's crop of summer blockbusters! Oh. Can't say this is neither the first nor the last time something like this has happened. Even though 1975 is considered the birth of the blockbuster, I'd like to argue further the idea of a summer blockbuster season didn't go into full effect until, say, 1981. Sure, within that time frame we had big special effects tentpoles, but 1981 felt like a true season of summer hits. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Superman 2, The Great Muppet Caper, History of the World Part 1, For Your Eyes Only, Escape from New York, The Fox and the Hound, Friday the 13th Part 2, you get the idea. Since then, big-name studios kept their eyes on those 4 months, a time when kids go on school vacation, folks take time off from work, and in between those camping trips or visits to the beach, people will squeeze in some spare time to see what's playing in theaters. As long as it's some big hyped-up tentpole flick or some kind of niche they're attached to, rest assured, summer movie season will be fine. That is, if one thing or another happens, like a season of overcrowded tentpoles, lackluster entries, and other benefactors that come into play. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, a bunch of Hollywood studios lined up the best of the best all for one particular summer, and they didn't do much. Well, that is the story of the summer movie season of 1985. And granted, I always wanted to do a video like this, examining a summer movie blockbuster season or two, but 1985 is a very particular case. A time when so many summer blockbusters were poised and lined up and set out to strike it big, and in return it was not the best that they hoped. Now, granted, not every single movie flopped. It's just the season as a whole was not as successful as Hollywood hoped. And if you ask me, the numbers speak for themselves. To get a better idea, let's go back to 1 year ago, the summer of 1984, a year packed with big names like Ghostbusters, Gremlins, Star Trek III, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, The Karate Kid, and Purple Rain to name a few. All 48 movies which grossed an estimated total of $1.45 billion, and 3 of them were able to hit the $100 million mark and gross a little extra. Now, let's compare that to 1985. You had 56 movies out that summer season, 2 of which were only able to hit the $100 million mark and gross extra, but the overall box office earnings of those 56 movies combined was $1.34 billion. Even though that sounds shy of 1984's overall gross, back then, this was considered a disappointment given how 1985 didn't match the previous year's successes. But oh, it didn't stop there. Not only was the summer season of 1985 considered a disappointment, but the entire year as a whole. I know this is just a small sample 4 months, but compared to 1984, it grossed a little less and was considered a major disappointment. But just for the sake of it, let's focus on the summer. It would be insane to cover the whole year. Why in the world at the time was the box office summer season of 1985 considered a failure? A time when so many titles were poised and set to succeed, and granted, some did, yet it was still regarded as a commercial disappointment as a whole. Well, in times like these, one has to look into various theories and critical assessments at the time that led to the reasons as to why. The first one I kept hearing was a lack of originality. Well, we had 8 sequels, about roughly 7 book adaptations, and 2 remakes. That's not a bad stack compared to, say, today, but that critique was more towards the year as a whole. So I think we can rule out the possibility of this being a summer loaded with sequels and reboots. Though it's interesting to note the kinds of remakes and sequels that were out at the time. For one notable weekend, you had the option to see the new James Bond movie, or Rambo: First Blood Part 2. What gets my attention is how you have a long-running franchise going head-to-head with a sequel from a movie that debuted 3 years ago, and is also tonally different. Then again, Roger Moore was clearly showing his age in A View to a Kill. A lot of the stunt work was not quite spectacular, and you had some really baffling moments.
What the hell?
Now, First Blood 2, on the other hand,
War. It's fantastic.
Michael Bay creams that this is the movie he wish he made. Oh, and Twilight Zone plot twist, James Cameron co-wrote the script. Yeah. Think about that next time you see another movie involving his blue Smurf cats from another planet. It's no wonder First Blood Part 2 was one of this summer season's movies that grossed beyond the $100 million mark. It was full of energy and reflected the kind of action-packed entertainment that moviegoers were chomping at the bit for. However, you also had stuff like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. While the previous 2 entries in the Mad Max series were gritty and dark, this one still tried to maintain that, but with children. And believe me, I try to restrain myself from using the words Mel Gibson, children, and paired with in one sentence. Though many have argued its lighter tone is contrast with the other entries, it could be also argued director George Miller's choices in easing up on the darker elements was due to some grief he was getting over at the time. Yeah, let's get beyond this one and move forward.
Oh, come on. Can't we just get beyond Thunderdome?
National Lampoon's European Vacation wasn't too bad, but it lacked the teeth and risks the first one had. And also, no Harold Ramis. It carried a good idea by parodying Americans' views of foreign culture. Some of the bite was there, but I wouldn't chalk this one up to bad. Just a decent entry that has good moments. You also had new takes on Brewster's Millions and the tall blonde man with one black shoe, remade into the man with one red shoe and Richard Pryor doing Brewster's Millions. Truth be told, I don't get the hate behind Walter Hill's take of Brewster. It's a fine comedy in its own, with a good supporting cast, including a very funny John Candy. Though Man with One Red Shoe, however...
We're hoping to include this home in our tour.
I don't think so. I think you're here because of a much bigger reason. I think it's fate. Destiny. Kismet. It's a confluence of mortal men.
Something wrong, Mr. Drew?
3 darts is too much!
Can Turner and Hooch come out a little sooner than possible, please? Either way, this is not a season that was completely front-loaded with tons of sequels, reboots, or live-action adaptations of well-known animated fan favorites. So I guess we can chalk that off. I mean, the sequels in general were not heavy this summer, the summer of 1985, but then again, you do have some bumbling camp fests here and there, like Red Sonja or Godzilla 1985. Less said the better. This, of course, leads into the second theory. Big public social events. 1984 was treated the Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. And major events like that will play a big strike in what will come out that weekend. In the case of 1984... Yep, Wolfgang Petersen's family fantasy epic didn't win gold that year, all thanks to a major sport event that comes around every 4 years. I mean, look at it this way. You had two options. Go and see this majestic, well-made, beautifully crafted movie for all ages that might scar some, or sit at home and engulf in McDonald's botched fast food promo, or you can easily win a Big Mac thanks to the Soviet Union boycott that happened that year.
I personally am gonna spit in every 50th burger.
In a moment, we'll look at the courageous Korean gymnast, Kim Hwan, who made a perfect dismount on what was later revealed to be a broken leg.
Alright. There's a little more to it, given that, in actuality, the Neverending Story's placement in the summer of 1984 was actually last minute, but I'll tell that tale another day. For 1985, they got Live Aid, a big global concert with all the greatest rock bands performing hit songs, and for a good cause. The best part? You could stay home, turn on MTV, and watch it for free. You could have a house party with burgers, soda, booze, and witness Queen stealing the whole show, and maybe take a bathroom break during Led Zeppelin's failed performance. So when one stacks up the odds that way, what came out brand new to cinemas that weekend to compete with that fare?
All around the world, rock and roll is all in play. All around the world, rock and roll is all in play.
On the other hand, I think I'll see Michael J. Fox playing Johnny B. Goode for the 90 bajillionth time. Playing in the screen next door. But, okay, so maybe it wasn't a major shakeup when you consider the fact that Live Aid was really a one-day event, but thanks to time zones, technically the concert lasted an extra day or so. But yet, it wasn't anything big or earth-shattering, even though it did hurt maybe a little bit of competition, but not in a grand or major way. Which brings us to theory number 3. Too many movies aimed at one particular audience, and there's some truth to it. A lot of critics at the time noticed a lot of feature films were easily targeted towards the younger audience. And I don't mean little kids, but preteens and adolescents. I had to really think on this one, considering the only G-rated movies out during that summer were Follow That Bird and Here Come the Littles. And in all fairness, there was some movies you could take the kids to see, at least 12 out of the 56 we got. And sure, the PG-13 rating was in effect, but not taken fully advantage of. So you had memorable moments like this in Family Affair, like Steven Spielberg's The Goonies.
That's my mom's most favorite piece! Oh my god!
Yeah, the PG rating was kind of a big deal back then. Looking over what was released during the summer of 1985, I was taken back by the amount of movies aimed at teenagers that got released. Teen Wolf, Private Resort, St. Elmo's Fire, Better Off Dead, Real Genius, Weird Science, Fright Night, The Heavenly Kid, and that's just to name a few. I find it fascinating when a whole marketplace just bets it all on one niche and tries to win. Not to say the year before took its chance getting the attention of adolescents and older audiences, but it's clear to see this one really aimed to get the focus of a younger audience somewhere between high school and college. Even Walt Disney Pictures tried that with 3 particular summer tentpoles, and they all failed spectacularly, with many critics saying they were too mature or not well done. Return to Oz, The Black Cauldron, and even My Science Project counts, despite being released under their Touchstone division. Oz and Black Cauldron are more fascinating given the production history and attempt Disney tried to be at going down a different path of maturity. Also, they had extra production cooking time to try and find a story that was manageable for feature length. Black Cauldron is more of a spectacular failure given it was worked on for so long and nobody knew what to do with it. Return to Oz, on the other hand, was one vision, but it was consistent. Albeit a very dark vision that left a lot of children mentally scarred and warnings on print ads for parents. Instead of Disney's usual light and fluff that would attract all audiences, you had 2 major summer films under their belt that were arguably too intense and too dark for, say, ages 7 and below. Now granted, I have a major soft spot for these 2 movies, yet I gotta admit, Disney was struggling at the time, they got hit really hard, and after these 3 bombed, major lessons were learned afterwards. Spoiler alert, Return to Oz was the better movie in my opinion. And what of that third movie Disney produced? Well, that falls under the fourth theory, and that's attempting to cash in on last year's successes, or the timing of said feature. The year before, Ghostbusters was a major hit for its combination of horror and comedy with some science fiction elements. Now, arguably, a lot of these movies were probably far into production or wrapping up when Ghostbusters debuted. Yet, you have that odd feeling that somewhere a studio head must have sent a note that said, make it more like this, and pray it succeeds. Well, my science project is exactly that. Kind of a poor man's Ghostbusters. Now, the premise is not bad for a high school student that comes across alien tech that messes with space and time.
It's God-funking Zilla.
Although you had other sci-fi teen comedies out at the same time that didn't have to mimic Ghostbusters, or try to act like the next Ghostbusters, or even attempt to be Ghostbusters. They had their own identity and unique premises to help them stand out. And yeah, you could argue some similarities or write them off as coincidental, but it does feel weird to see so many sci-fi teen comedies come out at the same time, and bunched together in one season. Now, not every one of them is going to be a major winner, but you can tell exactly where the effort lies among each of them. Though on a side note, I am pretty taken back by just how many horror movies were developed, crafted, and aimed at teenagers at the time. Fright Night and Return of the Living Dead were clear highlights that showed filmmakers taking old ideas and reinventing them for new audiences. A kid thinks he lives next door to a vampire that stalks his girlfriend, a group of teens that party near a morgue that accidentally unleashes a zombie apocalypse. They carried memorable characters, campy fun, and impressive special effects set pieces, which says a lot when other horror movies at the time don't quite reach the heights they hoped for. The Bride was perhaps a bit too prestigious to find mainstream audiences, let alone actually focus on its titular character. Not a bad idea for a retinkering of the Frankenstein lore, but when a bulkier movie focuses more on Mr. Krabs as the Frankenstein monster teamed up with a time bandit, and less of the bride, that's not a good sign.
Victor,
Naldo!
what do you think you're doing?
Man! Little man! He comes, he steals her, and he comes and hits and hits and
Splendid, marvelous, brilliant drama. Can we go now?
Yes.
Yes.
Even George A. Romero's Day of the Dead took quite a beating upon its first release. Now, for the record, this is one of my favorite of Romero's Dead franchise, but I feel releasing this one in the summer was probably not the way to go.
The zombies didn't do anything new in Day of the Dead. They just sort of shuffled around, moaning and looking like they've been left out in the sun too long. And the dialogue was too preachy and too talky and too overly dramatic. And as you could hear there, every time anybody made a point, the music made the point too. You know, a lot of drum rolls for every dramatic point in the dialogue. Romero, however, despite all of this stylistic excess, didn't come up with anything new to say about his Living Dead. And the sad fact of the matter is the zombies tried, but they just couldn't carry the movie all by themselves.
That's why the parody, Return of the Living Dead, released at the same time, was much more funny because at least it had an attitude about the zombies. This film doesn't.
The people who made Return of the Living Dead were not tired of zombies.
Okay, these zombies just drool.
In a summer where people wanted to see something uplifting and hopeful, you had one mean movie that had the literal guts to go in dark and nihilistic places. Maybe releasing this one around Halloween or Thanksgiving would have been better. Yet Return of the Living Dead shared similar dark themes, but did it with such camp and flair that you didn't mind it. This was the kind of movie that let you relax and enjoy the gore. Or else Romero was more horror with a thinking point. Though it is ironic to consider now that 40 years later, in the summer of 2025, we would actually get some movies that knew how to balance out the fun and thinking aspect really, really well. A good bulk of the movies gave a lot of delightful frights and some very unique social commentary. And then you had ones that were full of crap. Really, really pure, unconcentrated crap. So, with all the facts in place, what caused the summer of 1985 to fail, in my opinion? Well, I don't think the movies were to blame, but it was more on studio expectations. Think about it. Every one of them latched on to what they believed was one particular niche, one particular audience, the younger crowd. And upon doing so, many audiences felt alienated. Now, that's not to say every single movie bombed or flopped, but I think in trying to please one particular group, one group of folks, it resulted in so many others feeling left out at the party. Keep in mind, between 1981 to 1985, you had trending films like Porky's or the Sword and Sandal epics that were misleading executives into thinking this was the way to go. Internet was not a public advantage back then, so they had to go by what was popular at the box office. I feel by catering too much to the teenage crowd, it alienated a lot of audiences in getting their attention. This is not a case where there's too many reboots, sequels, or live-action adaptations of animated favorites. This is just a common case of people thinking latching onto one single interest resulted in turning many off. And even though the summer crop didn't quite succeed at the box office, I don't think the movies themselves were that bad. A good majority of them offered something interesting, unique, and different. A little commentary here, a little fun there. And for that, a studio or box office analyst shouldn't really dictate what you think. At the end of the day, it's your opinion that really matters on whether or not said film succeeded or failed upon your viewing experience. This was the same summer we got Back to the Future, The Goonies, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Summer Rental, and many more. Isn't the whole idea of being a filmgoer or movie buff be that your opinion matters? Even if a movie fails or succeeds, it's the experience that matters. At the end of the day, it's up to the audience to decide whether or not it was a good or a bad ride. And to sweeten the deal, here is my personal pick of top 15 summer movies from the year 1985 that I feel were greatly overlooked. But not underrated, or unappreciated, they're just ones that I think need a little more watching and loving. Though what I will say out of the get-go is that, can we all agree that Back to the Future was the best movie that came out that summer, let alone even the year 1985? For a time travel movie, it packs a lot of heart, memorable characters, and plenty of rewatchability. Now, I plan to cover this one sometime down the road, but for now, let's just agree it's easily the best of 1985. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at my top 15 personal picks of some overlooked 1985 summer movies that you should definitely check out. Let's start off with number 15, Summer Rental. Here's one I don't think many talk about, which is a shame because there's some good John Candy moments here. The 1980s were full of family vacation gone wrong movies, but this one stands out. An overworked father decides to head to Florida for a mandated vacation, and that's really all you need for the premise. It's not laugh-out-loud funny, but there are some good bits, like them going to the wrong house and attempting to get a table at a snooty seafood restaurant. My only gripe is the tussle between him and the rich antagonist is not fully developed, and the climactic sailboat race lacks any tension and is not quite exciting. Still, Summer Rental makes for a good watch if you want something laid back and not too heavy on the slapstick.
Best 2 out of 3?
Number 14, The Coca-Cola Kid. Eric Roberts plays a marketing executive trying to convince an unknown Australian town to buy their Coca-Cola, but an eccentric man living there fends off their soft drinks being sold in the small town. It's an Australian screwball comedy that kinda went under the radar, but has a small cult following. I like the idea you have this guy who's with the current times and tries to figure out why this small place has been avoiding their product. There are some dated moments and things that wouldn't fly too well by today's standards, but it's got a good heart and some really outrageous scenes. I love it when the head of the town tries to convince the company to sell his own soft drink with a pitch that even includes a biplane spelling out the letters and wanting to rename the company McCoke. There's also a funny subplot where Robert's character is trying to make a catchy jingle and hires a didgeridoo performer off the street, resulting in a rock song about Coca-Cola. At times, it can get really out there and some subplots don't really add up too well, but it's worth a watch. Number 13, The Goonies. I've talked about this one before on the show, but I feel it's one of those movies where even if the audience for it exists, I still don't think it gets enough attention. It's a treasure hunt with a group of kids trying to save their home, they go up against some mobsters, and try to avoid a couple of booby traps.
Booby traps, that's what I said!
It was directed by Richard Donner, written by Chris Columbus, and produced by Steven Spielberg. With a team up like that, how can you not say no to a movie that makes you feel like a kid again and reminds you of the adventures you pretended to go on in your own backyard? Number 12. The Stuff.
Where's the stuff?
This is a horror comedy that I feel is near forgotten. It was directed by Larry Cohen and is sort of like The Blob, but mixed with Invasion of the Body Snatchers, yet in the form of junk food people can't stop eating. There's good comedy, fun characters, impressive special effects, and I like how it's a movie that has a message about be careful what you eat without going too on the nose.
Enough is never enough. Enough is never enough of the stuff.
Number 11. Return of the Living Dead. No, it's not a sequel to Night of the Living Dead, though it's fascinating to see how this movie has its roots in a simple franchise dispute between original writers and creators George A. Romero and John Russo.
And so what they settled on, this is really weird, but Russo got the rights to the script and to the words living dead. But Romero got the rights to the word dead used by itself. Are you following this? Only lawyers could come up with this. That's why George Romero's sequels are not living dead movies, they're dead movies. Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, not to be confused with Sam Raimi's Evil Dead series. And I wonder if Sam owns the rights to the words Evil Dead. I wonder what his lawyer says. So anyway...
This one is iconic in its own right by taking the familiar tropes of teenager slasher movies and pinning them in a zombie movie. The effects are still impressive, and I love how it's a case where one small mistake leads to bigger problems. A simple gas leak from a toxic chemical snowballs into a zombie apocalypse, and there's just no way to stop it. But what makes it interesting here is that the zombies are practically unkillable. This is a small nitpick I do have, as it gives our main characters a bit of a disadvantage, but it's the tongue-in-cheek tone, the humor, the quotes, and the characters themselves that make the ride all the more worth it. Also, bonus points for Linnea Quigley's famous striptease on a tombstone. Worth it for the gore and rockin' soundtrack.
What do you think this is all about? You think this is a f***ing costume? This is a way of life.
I thought you said if we destroyed the brain, it'd die. It worked in the movie! Well, it ain't working now, Frank.
You mean the movie line?
Number 10. Real Genius. Here is prime Val Kilmer. He plays a student in a college that balances slacker time with study time. He's part of a group that is fashioned to make a laser, but is unaware it's for a government project. The other two standouts are William Atherton, who plays the professor, and John Grise as a student named Laszlo. William feels typecasted here given this was 1 year after he played Walter Peck in Ghostbusters, but he's always so good at jerk roles like this. And I just love how Laszlo is such a quiet character, but carries a good heart. I enjoy how he has this small laboratory set up in a closet of all places, far away from the loud shenanigans of the other students. It sets him apart from the others who are more wacky and full of energy. And again, Val Kilmer is really at his best here. He's a pure science prodigy that can crack an equation, but would rather enjoy life for what it is. Number 9. Day of the Dead. I refrain, this is probably my favorite of Romero's Dead films. The effects are top-notch, the tension is high, and I love the idea it questions who is the true monster in place in difficult time. What more can I say? It's a pure survival flick that was truly ahead of its time. Number 8. Return to Oz. This one I feel is more interesting given how much freedom Disney gave to director Walter Murch. He really channeled the bizarre and dark nature of L. Frank Baum's books, and for that reason, I really love this picture. The puppets on the creatures and claymation of the Gnome King done by Will Vinton hold up really well. It takes a lot of risks by pitting a younger version of Dorothy in pure hell. It can get too intense at times, but it's not bloody or anything. And that's the prospects of a good movie, that it keeps you coming back for those moments of childhood frights and wonder. My favorite standouts are Jack Pumpkinhead and the Gump. They are two polar opposites, when one is a pumpkin that has the mind of childlike innocence, and a moose head that is more pessimistic, knowing he's resorted to a flying sofa status under new life. At times bizarre and surprisingly scary, but it's got a good heart. Number 7. Tobe Hooper's Life Force. This one's schlocky, but the fun kind. A group of astronauts bring down a bunch of alien vampires, and all sorts of havoc happens. It's a modern-day take on a Hammer horror movie, even right down to changing up the mythology and lore a little for entertainment value. It's so batshit insane that it jumps around a lot. It starts off like an outer space movie, turns into a horror noir, but ends like an end-of-the-world flick. There's so much chaos, carnage, and madness on screen that you can't help but feel delighted by it. But if you want something lighter, number 6. Joe Dante's Explorers. A group of school kids get signs in their dreams that aliens are contacting them for a meetup. They build a spaceship out of amusement park ride parts, and I love how this movie details just how this works to the point it arguably feels plausible. It takes itself very seriously, until the last half when they meet the aliens. I won't give too much away, but it takes a more comedic approach by revealing all they know about human life is what they see on TV. Very much to the point they perform talk show monologues that go on a tad too long.
My wife gave me a new car. It's called Rolls Can Hardly. That's right, rolls down one hill, can hardly get up the next. Rolls can hardly, you get it?
But there is an added twist near the end that makes up for it. I feel this one is more about the journey than the goal itself, and that's what makes Explorers a bit special to me. Number 5. Better Off Dead. This was Savage Steve Holland's first movie, and it shows. John Cusack is a loser who fails at school, fails at sports, and even fails at trying to take his own life. Okay, dark as that sounds, it does carry a good message that you don't have to try too hard to achieve big success. You just need to start small and build yourself up from there. I can connect so much with Cusack's character, even right down to certain moments where he daydreams stuff at school and work. The supporting cast is hilarious, with the exception of one foot blemish that we don't speak of. But it's worth it for Curtis Armstrong as the best friend who'll do anything he can to get the best drug high, even to the point he resorts to snorting snow. Now that is hilarious. A lot of what the filmmakers learned here got ported over into One Crazy Summer, which I arguably say is the better movie. Yet, there's some stuff here I really do like that makes it worth a watch. Number 4. Pee-wee's Big Adventure. This is one I can't let slide by. It's my favorite Tim Burton movie. It does a good job showcasing the wonders and nightmares of a child, and for a road trip plot about trying to find a stolen bicycle, it works. It's funny, iconic, fresh, and endearing after all these years, much like the Pee Wee Herman character.
Radical!
Number 3. Year of the Dragon. This is one I don't see getting talk about much today, and I wonder if that has something to do with its content. Mickey Rourke plays a detective that is cracking down on mobster activity in Chinatown, all the while he tries to get over his racist bigotry when he falls for an Asian television reporter. I think a lot of the critics at the time really felt this one was a racist movie when it was exploiting the racial attitudes at the time. It was taking a slap at the stereotyping and less using them as a crutch. Director Michael Cimino, who was licking his wounds after his Heaven's Gate flop, redeems himself with a true crime drama that is engaging, carries explosive and bloody action scenes, but with a good moral that doesn't water itself down. You really can't do a movie like this today. Number 2. Cocoon. I am very disappointed to say how this one is hard to find on streaming. Any physical copy goes for insane prices on eBay, and it's all because of some music licensing issues from what I read up. But whatever the reason for its holdback on being re-released, I do hope that the current generation gets to see this one. Ron Howard directs a sweet fable about a bunch of seniors who get their youthful strength back after swimming next to some alien pods in a pool. I won't say too much about this one, because this delivers one surprise after another. It's funny, emotional, and a pure reflection of what the 1980s were all about. Youth, greed, and alien wonder. That's all you need to know. If you can hunt it down, definitely watch it. And in my opinion, the number 1 most overlooked summer flick of 1985 goes to... Sesame Street's Follow That Bird. Here is a movie I hope will get a bigger audience over time. The cult following is there, but it's a great definition of a movie that is perfect for everyone. It's a shame this flick was not a big hit due to competition, and supposedly Warner Brothers didn't think much of it, resulting in little marketing. Sure, it's G-rated, but don't let that hold you back. It's way better than it appears on the surface. Big Bird gets adopted by a family of birds, but ends up going back to Sesame Street on foot, realizing that home is more than being with a family of your own kind, it's what you make of it. This is a road trip movie full of comedy, heartfelt moments that are genuine, noteworthy cameos, and some memorable songs too. In my own mind, this is the third Muppet movie that completes the trilogy, with Muppet Movie and Great Muppet Caper, because it's one I watched a lot of before I entered my teen years. It sometimes goes to show that a film doesn't have to have explosions or big names just to be entertaining. Just a good story, good characters, and above all, it needs to be entertaining. When I watch this movie in my older years, I don't see them as puppets, but actual legit characters. Even to the full extent when they put them in the real world and do things like driving cars, or even flying biplanes. Fun fact, Jim and Frank had to perform as Bert and Ernie in an actual biplane when flying that thing around. It's sweet, endearing, and really knows how to pull on your heartstrings. Trust me when I say this is more than just another kid's flick, because I still find myself laughing and crying at the right moments than laughing with it. But at the end of the day, don't take my word for it. Even if one summer movie season was not exactly up to your standards, doesn't mean it acquires and accounts for the whole summer season to be bad as a whole. Once in a while you'll get one or two that are actually good, or maybe a surprise here and there. Sure, there's always next year, but what's more important is which title left a lasting impact on you. Like Gone Fishing with the Family or Camping with the One You Love, chances are every summer will leave behind a good memory in a sea of positive and negative ones. And no matter if the summer crop succeeded or not, you can argue these movies will still leave a lasting impact with those who saw it at the time, even beyond its opening weekend. Because that's what the summer films of 1985 represents to me. A sea and collective of good and bad memories waiting to be rediscovered by a new generation or rewatched upon those who've experienced it before. Because even as long as they sit on the shelf, they're always waiting and wanting to be seen by old and new fresh eyes, just to get that feeling again as they once premiered, that glorious summer when they tried to succeed. But I can't say they didn't fail, because it all falls upon what you think of them. Until the next upload, see you later.
Welcome to your life. There's no turning back. Even while we sleep, we will find you acting on your best behavior. Turn your back on Mother Nature. Everybody wants to rule the world. It's my own design. It's my own remorse. Help me to decide. Help me make the most of freedom and of pleasure. Nothing ever lasts forever. Everybody wants to rule the world. And there's a room where the light don't find you. Holding hands while the walls come tumbling down. When they do, I'll be right behind you. So glad we've almost made it. So sad they had to fade it. Everybody wants to rule the world.
Cut.
Come on, Dottie. Let's go.
Let's go. Don't you want to see the rest of the movie?
I don't have to see it, Dottie. I lived it.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.